Hey, what's up YouTube and everybody? It's Dat Halfbreed here, or in this case, Takara Sophia Blaze. Here to talk to you guys about my third place finish with Film Kid at the Top Cut Treasure Cup last weekend. It was a really great tournament. I had a fantastic run. Live streamed the whole thing, so you can always check it out on our Twitch channel if you want to watch the full VOD. And I wanted to go today to both show you the full deck list, go over the cards, how they play, why they're in the deck, matchups and stuff like that. And yeah, you know, hopefully convert some other believers that we don't need purple in our deck. We can just play the green cards and we can still win plenty, you know. Alright, so I kind of want to talk about the deck in chunks of cards, and I have it split up here. And the first thing I want to talk about is just what I call basically the broken cards in the deck. These are like the most broken cards in the deck: Film Nami, Film Luffy, and Film Brook. There's 4 of all of these. These cards are the cards that make the deck work. It's the cards that make the deck good, and the cards that like push the deck over the edge, right? The idea of like Brook letting you get 2 bodies, 7 Dawn worth of cards for just 4. Or sometimes Luffy, which lets you get 3 bodies in combination for the cost of 7, and you still have a blocker, right? Just this idea of going wide is so strong in a metagame that has decks like yellow, and against red decks that also go wide with smaller bodies, right? If you can go wide and keep up with them, then you really have a lot of power, right? And so these are the cards that I really think are like the most broken part of the deck. You want your opening hands to have these cards. You want to draw these cards as much as possible. And like mainly, this card is so crazy. It's so insanely good. The fact that you get to draw on play, on attack. Any game where you draw multiple of these, it feels really hard to lose. And any game where you get to... You're just trying almost every game to just attack with this card as much as possible so that you can keep your hand full, right? And that's what this deck is so good at. It's like good at generating value with cards like this, right? And then, so of course, because we're playing Film Nami and these really broken film cards, we need to fill out the curve to make sure that we have enough film cards both to activate our Nami, to put cards into play with our Brooks and our Usopp. So we have Zoro and Usopp, of course, which you kind of both have to play because they come in off of your effect. And we have the 4 2K Tony Choppers, which are, of course, searchable off Nami. I got my 2 normal ones and 2 store championship ones because I was only able to go to 1 store championship, right? So we have 1 copy of Barto here instead of the 4th Usopp, basically, to make sure that we always have enough cards to put into play off of our Brooks. And they're just really good at untapping the Namis or untapping your Luffys to either get more card draw off your Nami or more blocks with your Luffy, right? And then last 2 film cards here are just 2 film Frankies, you know, and these are kind of in there where, like, we have a decent amount of things to do in the early game and a decent amount of things to do in the late game, but sometimes this deck feels like it was missing stuff to do in the middle and bodies that were relevant against you know, decks that have bigger powers like 8,000 and 9,000 power cards, and where you don't want to spend Dawn to have to attack for a reasonable number. So we got 2 Frankie just to up the film count, as well as to make sure that we still have some nice threats in the middle, right? And so, of course, when you have the film cards, the really nice thing about the film cards is that there's 2 cards that are film and supernova, right? We have Zoro and Luffy, which are both supernovas, which means we get to play the best searcher in the game, which is 4 Bonnie, of course, right? So we play 4 Bonnie to find the Luffys, find the Zoros. There's a lot of other really, really powerful cards we can find off of the Jewelry Bonnie. Like we have 3 copies of Killer here. We play Killer instead of Capone just because we want the extra counter stat on the side here. And especially in the late game against decks like Yellow Katakuri and against decks like even Blue Crocodile, having these cheap blockers can go a long way. And especially since that this draws you a card, the extra card draw can come in really, really clutch in the late game. You know, to round off our Supernova package, we have 3 Punk Gibson. Just an incredible, incredible event. This is how you get rid of blockers in the late game. There's so many situations in my tournament run where I had a Gibson in hand, and because I had a Gibson, I couldn't lose, and my opponent couldn't win. Because it gets rid of 2 attackers, or it makes sure that they can't block, and it just gives you +4, which is, you know, enough to make sure that basically nothing is going to get through. Even just with an extra card or 2. And then here, we only have 3 Apus. I had to make a hard choice of cutting an Apu just because it felt like you want enough 2Ks. But now that Whitebeard isn't in the metagame as much, it doesn't feel like you need as many 2Ks. And with a full 12 2Ks, it just felt like it ended up that I had too many hands that were full of 2Ks and nothing to actually add to the board. So we had to trim a 2K, and it ended up being Scratchman Apu. And then the final cards here for the Supernovas are we have 1 copy of 8-drop Eustace. This is the card that, you know, we have 1-ofs because Jewelry Bonnie searches really deep for top 5. So it's easy to find the 1-ofs. And the 1-ofs are really, really impactful in some matchups. Like, this is really, really good in the Doflamingo matchup and against the yellow matchup. Basically, all of my tech cards, my 1 or 2-ofs, are cards that were specifically in the deck to try and get better against Yellow Katakuri and against Green Purple Doflamingo, because those are the most popular decks, right? In the tournament, they were the most popular decks by far. So we have Eustace Kid to help against, you know, Doflamingo has a hard time reaching 8K to attack in, right? They have a bunch of 5K swings for sure, but they don't have anything that destroys this 8-drop Kid. And it's really expensive to attack for 8, and the more Dawn they attach, the less they have open for events, right? It's also good against Katakuri, just you go to 0, you play 8-drop Kid, and then you don't have to worry about Big Mom for the rest of the game. And Hawkins is the same thing, where it's just, it's so excellent against Katakuri and Katakuri and Green Purple Dofi, where there's not as much removal, right? The only removal they do have is very expensive, right? Either they have to Thunderbolt it, which costs them a life, which is really good for us, or in Green Purple Dofi, they have to, like, 9-drop Kaido it, which can be really expensive, right? And also, we kind of have one of the MVPs of my tournament, personally, honestly. It's this 5/6 X-Drake. These X-Drakes were so good. They destroy Rested Namis. They destroyed Crackers. They destroyed Blocker Sanjis. It's just so good at making sure. It's one of the only, like, removal spells that green has that you can really get away with playing. And because it's searchable off of Bonnie, you see it so often. And it really provides a lot of pressure of taking one thing off of their battlefield and providing you with an attacker that's very cheap and very efficient, right? Just 1 Dawn on this and you get a 7K swing for a lot of value. So, you know, a lot of these 1-ofs seem odd, but because of the fact that we have, you know, once again, I'll say it, the best searcher in the game, right? If they don't kill this right away, you get to keep spinning it, keep drawing more cards, right? That's what this deck is so good at, just generating more and more cards every single turn and forcing your opponent to be like, oh my god, I can't attack my kid opponent's life because I need to kill these characters, otherwise his hand is just going to be full of like 20 cards and I'm going to lose, right? And then so last cards to fill up the deck is we have 3 10-drop Doflamingo and 4 copies of Izo. You kind of need the 4 copies of Izo because the rest effect is so important in the late game. Resting blockers, resting cards that you can attack into, right? Against blue, you often use it to rest Sentimaru so that you can kill it before they get too much value off of it. And 10-drop Dofi is just 10-drop Dofi. It's so strong against the higher power decks, right? Once you get 3 characters with this, I won a couple of matches against Crocodile where just I kept 3 characters locked down with this 10-drop for so long that even the fact, like, I played the 10-drop and they red rocked it right away, but it didn't matter. I just was still able to kill them because if you play 10-drop and you have anything else on board, it's just impossible for your opponent to clear the cards on your board because all their stuff is still rested. And even if they kill the Doflamingo, you still get to pressure them with all your other characters in play and your leader. So I certainly hope you guys will give this deck a try. I'm a huge fan of it. It's like a lot of value. This deck definitely rewards you for being as efficient as humanly possible. You want to make sure that, like, against a lot of the matchups I played, I saw a lot of people do things like play a Luffy without putting something else into play. Play a Brook without putting something else to play. And you really should avoid situations like that at all costs and try and find other ways to set up your hand so that you get your counterless cards out of your hand for the most value. And if you can't, right, if you have a Luffy in your hand and it's not going to put anything into play, then you might as well not play it. You might as well just discard it with your leader effect to attack more, because it's going to provide you way more value that way than just playing a 7/7 blocker. And it's stuff like that, right? This deck is just really good at getting on the board early through Brook and Luffy, and then maintaining that board presence and putting, like, pressure on the opponent's life total. In this matchup, you should always be trying to, you know, have more life than your opponent, and, you know, you're attacking your opponent's life, and your opponent is attacking your board because they want to try and not to die. And you just get to punish them for those situations so much by either refilling your board really quickly after they've cleared. They spend a bunch of time trying to clear your board, and then you keep it all rested with 10-drop Doflamingo. Or, you know, if they ever get too low on life, you just leader effect them to death, right? This leader effect is so powerful too, and I think too many people don't realize that you can use your leader to clear your opponent's board too, right? There's a bunch of turns where it's just like, it's okay for me to take the turn off just to attach a bunch of Dawn to my leader, attack a character, try and kill it, you know, discard a card, restand, attack a different character, try and clear the board, and then, you know, set up for a really good turn of multiple characters in one turn on an empty board. So I hope that gives some people some ideas. I certainly hope you'll try out this deck at home. I used to recommend this deck to a lot of people because of how cheap it was and how, like, relatively easy it is to play in comparison to some other decks. But, of course, it certainly is a lot more expensive now that Film Namis are like $15, $20 a pop, which is pretty rough, but it's still not a bad deck to build price-wise, and it's still going to be playable for quite a while to come just because of how powerful the leader effect is. And soon after, you know, we're going to be getting Film Uta, which then we'll get to retire our kids for a little bit and play the Uta leader. But the cards in the deck will still mostly be the same. So learning the play patterns with your Film Namis, your Film Luffys, your Film Brooks, it'll certainly pay off if you put in the hours now. It won't just go by the wayside. So yeah, that's the deck, everybody. Obviously, if you have questions, you know, please let me know in the comments. Please, of course, follow the stream at twitch.tv/dathalfbreed. You can always catch us there. I'm live 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, usually, at least. I'm playing a whole bunch of different range of decks. I play Paper, I play on the Sim, I commentate. So there's always something fun to watch on the stream. And yeah, man, once the Serial Shanks arrives for our 3rd place, you know we're going to open it live on stream, and I'll let you guys see it all, and we'll show the number, and then who knows, I might sell it or auction it off or something. But yeah, thanks so much for all the support, everyone. It was really nice having all the chat with me at this incredible run, this incredible 3rd place run, which I'm really proud of. I'm really happy that the chat was able to grow. We gained a bunch of followers and subscribers. So, of course, I'm rambling now. Thanks for watching the video. Enjoy the deck list. And yeah, enjoy One Piece, man. This game is too good to not enjoy. So, have a good one, everybody.